NTA International News.
Northwest governors move to boost agricultural production, embrace Nigeria-Morocco fertilizer initiative. Towards effecting CBN ban on abuse of Naira, Nigeria police force raids suspected places. Plus, Nigerian government on a 5-year strategic plan for the control of cervical cancer as the world marks International Cancer Day. Hello there, a warm welcome to NTA International News. I'm Joseph Johnson. Let's begin with health matters. A report from population-based cancer registries shows that Nigeria currently has 100,000 new cases of cancer every year. This figure represents 20% of cases in Africa and slightly more than half of West Africa. The worrisome data has given rise to many intervention efforts by government over the years. This year, the country is working on a 5-year strategic plan for the control of cervical cancer. This is part of Nigeria's focus as the World Cancer Day is marked today. The Federal Ministry of Health says personnel for the plan are being trained with funding from the World Health Organization and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
It's unimaginable that 2 months ago there was no single machine in this country. It is unimaginable. Government must make it a national emergency that cancer care should be provided to the common people.
Government should fund vaccination for all the citizens against these common cancers that are preventable by vaccination. I believe in doing this we'll have gone a long way in preventing quite a lot of cancers occurring amongst Nigerians.
This national strategic plan is expected to significantly slash the cancer burden in the country. Nigeria's sub-theme for this year's Cancer Day is Make a Healthy Lifestyle Choice. To security matters now, the Nigerian police force says its advice for Two-Face to shelve the planned peaceful protests is to forestall the breakdown of law and order, since an opposing group also scheduled its protest the same days. The force public relations officer, Chief Superintendent of Police, Moshood Jimo, gave his explanation at a briefing in Abuja. Edino Justice reports.
Mr. Jimo, who expressed the police concern over the security implication of protests of such nature, said the police is not against the scheduled protest, saying every citizen has the right to freedom of association. He says the only fear is the information that other groups are planning a counter-protest same day at the same time.
Because of the credible intelligence at the disposal of the force, and that the Two-Face Idibia protest is going to coincide with other interest groups that are protesting against the Two-Face Idibia protest. And the demonstration, if allowed to be held as scheduled, there may be breakdown of law and order with another loss of life. To this end, the Inspector General of Police have directed that innocent Idibia Two-Face and his group are hereby advised strongly to shelve their planned peaceful protests and demonstration in the interest of peace and security. And also that the other opposing groups are equally advised strongly to shelve their planned counter-protest and demonstration in the interest of peace and security.
He also advised the parents and religious leaders to prevail on their children and members not to be used to cause public disturbance. From the first headquarters, Edino Justice, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Laulu Akonde, says the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration is not interested in preventing any Nigerian from holding protest as long as it is lawful. Speaking to State House correspondents, the Senior Special Assistant reiterated the administration's belief and respect for the rights of the people, saying it would do nothing to stop exercising those rights.
It's important to state very clearly that the federal government, the Buhari administration, is not opposed to people expressing their fundamental human right to peaceful assembly. You know, so we want to be very categorical about that. This government is not opposed to people exercising their fundamental human rights to protest in a lawful way. the role of the police, and I think the police has even made this very clear already, in the last recently, is to ensure that the peace is kept, the peace is maintained. So very clearly, we have no problem at all. This government is about the people. This government is about empowering the people. And very clearly, if you look at the record of this government, there has been no government that has come up with a kind of comprehensive social investment program that this government is currently implementing. As we are speaking now, I think in about 28 states, at least 28 states, one aspect of our social investment program is going on. Is we eventually cover all the 36 states, As a matter of fact, all the 36 states are covered because we have the Empower program, which is across the country. So the point I'm making here is that Nigerians do appreciate what this government is doing, even before before any kind of crisis. We stated very clearly that we intend to focus on the plight of the Nigerian people, address the needs of the poor people, ensure that Nigeria and Nigeria's resources exist for all Nigerians. So we won't have any reason at all to want to stop anybody who wants to exercise their rights to peaceful protest.
Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Laulu Akonde there. In the meantime, police have begun raids on places where Naira currency are sold, sprayed or squeezed. The Commissioner of Police Federal Capital Territory, Muhammad Mustafa, says its command has commenced enforcement of the CBN Act banning abuse of Naira, saying it is illegal to sell, buy, spray the Naira at social events. Dino Justice again reports.
Briefing journalists on the outcome of raids carried out so far, Muhammad Mustafa said 4 suspects have been arrested at the Day, Jabi and environs where such illegal operations are carried out. He said about 2 million naira was recovered and warned the public that the enforcement team will continue to monitor social events for people that spread naira as well.
The enforcement committee wants to reiterate its unwavering stance and the readiness to sustain its raiding of the identified areas and some other areas where the naira is being abused.
Meanwhile, the FCT Commissioner has also warned individuals or groups that want to embark on protests to seek police approval for protection to avoid people using such freedom to perpetrate crimes.
The planned nationwide protests slated for 6 February, the command wants to advise the convenience of such protests to jettisoning any plan of carrying out the protests on the streets of the FCT, as it is capable of breaching the peaceful atmosphere we are all enjoying.
He however advised that the public will still explore police mechanism of resolving conflicts. In Abuja, Edino Justice, NTA News.
Now let's catch up on some of the other news for you now. Governors in the northwest Nigeria have promised to give necessary support to agriculture to further boost crop production during the dry season farming. This is coming as the governors resolve to key into the federal government fertilizer production initiative under the Nigeria-Morocco agreement. Musa Babaliu has details.
It is a tradition for prices of food items to go down during and after harvest, as farmers usually push excess of their produce to market. But the 2016-2017 harvest came with a difference. Despite the bumper harvest, inflation remains high. Farmers and agriculturists attribute the development to high cost of inputs, especially fertilizer. For instance, this farmer said he needs at least 4 bags equivalent to 200 kilograms of fertilizer to produce 10 to 15 bags of maize, and a bag was sold for between 12 to 13,000 naira.
Farmers cannot be able to use fertilizer due to high price. So we want government to support small farmers and the big farmers.
Because every input going into food production has risen in cost. The price of diesel is around 200 naira to 250 naira per liter. Petroleum, 145 naira per liter. Then fertilizer. Every farmer buys fertilizer between 6,000 to 11,000 per 50 kilo bag.
The federal government has now developed a strategy that will boost fertilizer production for sale to farmers at cheaper rate.
The federal government, through NISA, which is a subsidiary of the Central Bank of Nigeria, has resolved that all the blending plants in Nigeria are expected to be made functional. And so NISA was directed by Mr. President to guarantee funding so that all our blending plants can be made functional.
Northwest State governors, therefore, pledged to key into the federal government's initiative in the interest of farmers.
So the new federal government initiative will see to it that fertilizer is being delivered in large quantity to our farmers at not more than 5,500 without a single subsidy from any strata of government. If a farmer can produce his farm produce, and due to lack of inconsistent policies, food is being imported and the farmer cannot sell at a profitable rate, then definitely the farmer will not produce next year.
The federal government is supporting 500,000 farmers with inputs. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Now, a bit on politics. Participants at a stakeholders roundtable on youth political participation and presentation in Nigeria have called for more engagement of the youths by political parties and an inclusive national health policy as veritable tools to achieve that. Political correspondent Abdullahi Garba Brennan-Kudu reports.
In any political rally, youth constitute majority of attendance. It does not, however, reflect their weight in terms of representation and enough political space to have a say in the polity. These and other issues as they affect youth participation in politics engage participants in this roundtable. They recommended more inclusion, legislation and institutionalized reforms on youth matters in Nigeria.
But those engagements on social media have never translated to offline engagement, because if it has, then we won't record 30% voter turnout.
We need advocacy. We need to put our strength together to ensure that the Constitution of Nigeria recognizes the national youth policy.
You know, political parties determine their future, so my encouragement to the youth would be get involved in political parties, join the political parties, become members of political parties, become active in political parties.
The roundtable was organized by Westminster Foundation for Democracy of the United Kingdom. In Abuja, Abdullahi Garba Brennan-Kudu, NTA News.
The federal government is to hold the North Central edition of its town hall meeting on Monday, February 6th, 2017. The event, which will take place at the banquet hall opposite Government House, Ilorin, will start at 10 o'clock in the morning. A statement by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, Mrs. Ayotunde Adeshugba, urged invited guests to be seated by 9:45. Delta State Governor James Onanefe Ibori arrived in Nigeria this morning from United Kingdom after serving out his jail terms. Reports say prominent politicians and his kingsmen were on hand to receive him on arrival in his hometown, Ogara. You're watching NTA International News from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Stay on for more reports when we return after the break.
Exotic land of rainbow, a giant in the sun, rich in human and natural resources, a land of cultural diversity for tourists' appreciation. Nigeria occupies 923,766 square kilometers, accommodating over 250 indigenous languages. It is a wonderful environment for leisure and business. Nigeria, land of milk and honey, a paradise for tourists.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Many thanks for staying with us. Nigeria's diversification drive continues to receive a boost in the agricultural sector. Details with Amina Nujem.
In a bid to encourage and enhance agricultural production in Nigeria, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill for an act to establish a warehouse regulatory agency. The bill seeks to encourage and promote the patronage of locally made goods and to increase export.
How it works is that the commodity will first of all be produced to export standard. And so when it is taken to the warehouse, the standard requirement must be met before it is accepted. And once it is accepted, that means that product can be sold anywhere. It's a project that every state should be anxious, every local government should be anxious to get.
In other developments, Nigeria's naira is expected to remain steady in the coming weeks as regulators step in to meet forex shortages. The naira is expected to trade within a recent range after the central bank released around $660 million to quench greenback shortage in Africa's biggest economy. It was quoted at 498 to the dollar on the parallel market, the same as last week, while banks quoted the currency at 314 naira 50 kobo to a dollar on the official interbank window. The unit is seen closing around 305 to the dollar, the same level it has traded at since August. On Wednesday, Nigeria sold dollar in a special auction aimed at clearing the backlog of dollar obligation of manufacturers, airlines, and the agriculture and petroleum sectors. The naira lost around a third of its official value against the dollar in 2016, and the stock markets declined 6.17% over the same period, reflecting a slump in Africa's largest economy. And now, latest closing figures from the NAC. That concludes the business package. I am Amina Nujain.
Still talking business, the Presidential Council on Ease of Doing Business Reforms says it is committed to improving Nigeria's ranking by 20 species in the next 5 years. The Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Olusegun Awolowo, stated this while addressing participants at a national sensitization workshop on trade facilitation in Abuja. Vivian Edekpefo reports.
The World Bank in its latest report ranks Nigeria 149 out of 190 countries surveyed globally in ease of doing business. The federal government's ratification of the Trade Facilitation Agreement was intended to streamline trade procedures and reduce costs by an average of 14.3%. Mr. Awolowo, who is also the head of Nigeria's delegation to the United Nations Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business, says the Trade Facilitation Agreement will increase Nigeria's competitiveness, simplify national and international transactions, and contribute to the growth of global commerce.
Particularly, we are more interested in exports, and we're looking at finally getting together and implementing the single window anchored by the Nigerian Customs Services.
Nigeria is doing quite a lot to help businesses grow within Nigeria and attract foreign investment, and also ensure that they're in line with international standards.
Our aim that in the next couple of weeks, visas into Nigeria will be obtained within 48 hours.
Trade advisor to the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Chiedu Osakwe, emphasized the urgency for Nigeria to tap into the opportunities thrown up by the digital economy, which is regarded as the fastest growing in the world. In Abuja, Vivian Itekbefo, NTA News.
And for stories that made headlines within the week, here is Justin Bemui. Hello there, and glad to have you join us on this segment of the bulletin, the Week in Review. Now let's begin from the outcome of the outgoing week's Federal Executive Council meeting. The federal government had constituted a presidential task force to urgently consider measures that would ensure a steady flow of produce to the market and reverse recent price increases. Given the directive, Acting President Yemi Osinbajo expressed concern at some of the inflationary rates of food prices, noting that the task force will explore options to promote availability and affordability of food items to Nigerians.
But this just to show that the government is very, very concerned about the rising cost of food prices, and we are responding to it. The committee hopefully will be able to report back to Council next week with concrete actions to be taken.
Thereafter, within the week, the task force swung into action and identified some key staple foods and the factors that are most likely driving high food prices in some parts of the country, despite bumper harvests at many farms. A statement from the Office of the Vice President said the task force will be coordinating with various ministries, departments and agencies and working with the private sector to find ways of overcoming some of the food supply bottlenecks. And in a related development from the agriculture sector, we told you that the federal government had commenced distribution of farming inputs for effective implementation of Growth Enhancement Scheme, GES. The program was flagged off in Kano State, targeting 500,000 farmers for the 2016-2017 dry season farming. Moving on to other happenings away from agriculture now, within the week, Acting President Yemi Osinbajo, while launching Solar Home System in Wuna Village, a suburb of the Federal Capital Territory, said the Buhari administration will do its best to use solar power to meet the energy needs of the people, especially those in the rural areas. The Acting President in the week also reaffirmed government's commitment to defend the rule of law and protect lives of Nigerians regardless of religion and ethnicity. A statement from the Office of the Acting President indicated that anyone who violates the law must be made to face the full wrath of the law, despite the limitations of the criminal justice system in the country. From the science sector, you heard that Nigeria's first soil atlas for general knowledge of soil types and their engineering classifications was launched. Produced by Nigerian Building and Roads Research Institute, the atlas provides subgrade soils data applicable in the design of dams, bridges, roadworks, and other construction structures. On the economy, there was a report that the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Enelema, assured investors and indigenous manufacturers that government is not contemplating reversing the Nigerian Industrial Revolution plan. He stated these at a media briefing in Abuja. Meanwhile, Minister of State Industry, Trade and Investment, Aisha Abubakar, said the Presidential Committee on Ease of Doing Business is working assiduously to improve the business environment in Nigeria. The minister gave this assurance when she received a cross-section of indigenous investors in Abuja. Turning now to legislative matters, current leadership of the National Assembly in the week under review refuted allegation of receiving the sum of 630 million naira for renting or renovating official residencies as insinuated by a civil society organization. Senator Dino Melaye noted that the Assembly's presiding officer cannot be part of such illegality. Meanwhile, the public account committees of both the Senate and House of Representatives frowned at the failure of more than 300 federal government parastatals to submit their audited accounts to the Auditor General of the Federation. To this end, the committees recommended to both chambers to withhold their 2017 budgetary allocation. Now a quick check on the international scene before we round off the review for the week. We remind you that the 28th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa came to a conclusion as far-reaching decisions were taken that will bring about greater Africa integration. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, made the disclosure in a media parley in Abuja. And with that, we end the review for the week. Thank you for your time. But please do stay tuned as the news continues. Justin Bemoye reporting. For reports from other parts of the globe, here is Musa Babaliu.
And the citizens of Seattle.
A federal court in the United States has put a nationwide block on President Donald Trump's executive order that barred refugees and nationals from 7 countries from entering the United States. The court's restraining order, analysts believed, is a major setback for Trump's action, though the White House says the ban is lawful and appropriate, and that the U.S. Department of Justice